So now we get to our FAWs hands-on, and we're going to start with the executive summary and summary worksheets. Both of these sheets typically require only minimal input, and that would only be on the executive summary. The summary sheet actually is all driven by the data that's entered in other places within the FAWs. So the executive summary, the intent is to summarize the selected alternatives planning costs, which is before the project goes live, the project costs during the project, and then the future and IT and operations costs after the project and continuing. So what this does is it provides a snapshot of all the detail of where the project has allocated their funds, where the staff, what it costs for staffing, what it costs for the software solution. It's all in one place so that they can, so an executive or high level summary of where those costs are going. And it's basically the total cost. So it's only providing a one page or possibly two page summary of the totals. So it doesn't go into the detail of which year the funds are expended in. This particular sheet only shows the bottom line. This is what the project costs overall. Additionally, I want to note that this summary cost information is identical to the project status report format, so that you can take the information that's on your that summary sheet and it transfers to a project status report line by line, so that you can kind of see, okay, that's where from overall going forward, if I was providing a status report, I could look at my executive summary sheet, and it would provide a line by line comparison to the project status report. So if all of you have a your FAW blank for the exercise, if you would like, now would be a good time just to open it up and start with this area right here, the step one, and enter the project name, department name, project number, and date. This will give you an idea. This is the only area of the executive cost summary where, as a department enters information. If I were to go ahead and do what the instructions say, and then I'll go ahead and let you do the same, your own copy. Instructions. So I'm going to enter in, I think it's Department of Personal Services. Sorry, that's not the name. I did it wrong. This is the project name is DPS and it's Department of Personal Services, and the project number is 1234015 or something like that, and then the date 6/22/2021. One thing that I want you to notice is that once you do that, if you go to your other tabs, so the summary tab, went ahead, based on the formulas already in the FAWs, it shows that on each of your sheets. So you don't have to re-enter it again and again. You enter it one time on the executive cost summary. And once you do that, it goes throughout the sheets. If I don't know why you would do this, but if you wanted to, they're not protected fields, so you could override this and put a different date if you wanted to. You could, and then also you could do, but it would be a department by department determination if they wanted to do that or not. Does everybody have that wanted to do the exercises?
Yes.
Let me get back to here. So all the other worksheets, project information is automatically provided based on what is entered in the Alt 1 project and Alt 1 future ops. If you enter anything in Alt 2 or Alt 3, it will not transfer to here. Only the selected alternative would go onto this sheet. So that would be something that when you've done your analysis and you determine that the custom build or the systems integrator or MOTS or COTS, whatever it ends up being, whatever solution provides the best benefit for the state of California, that would be the information that you would begin entering in your alternative one project and alternative one operations, future ops, because those are the ones that are going to translate to not only this sheet, but also to the funding plan. Anything that you put in another Alt 2 or Alt 3, those will not transfer to this or to the funding plan. They will transfer to the next sheet though. So the total project costs, just one thing I wanted you to note was the total project costs for stage 4, the approval letter is going to match this information right here. It's going to have the total planning costs, the total project costs, which are the one-time costs, and it's also going to have your future IT staff and OE&E costs. So those 3 things, and then also your annual. What is it for your annual? So as you can see on this one, it was $167,382 for your total OE&E, future IT staff and OE&E costs for the continuing for M&O. However, it was a little less on an ongoing basis because there must have been a partial year or a ramp up, ramp down. So in this case, it shows that it tells Department of Finance and it also tells Department of Technology your IT project costs that you need to be funded for on an ongoing basis is that portion. Now that only includes your IT staff and your OE&E. It does not include if you have program staff included in an ongoing basis. Program staff would be requested and funded through a program BCP. So that's why they're, in this sense, the only thing that you want for the IT solution is your actual IT costs. What is it above and beyond everything? What by adding this IT solution, what is it going to cost from an IT staff aspect? That's what's included here, not necessarily if there's additional program staff. I hope that makes sense. This section here, the staff salaries and benefits, that's the total salaries and staff benefits. So we know that for this project, it actually costs, because this includes anyone that's involved, program or IT, for the project cost for the one time, it does include everyone. The staff OE&E roll-up, we'll get to that, but that includes all those expenses like rent, training, general staff complement expenses. Anything like that is actually rolled up into one cost. It looks like in this solution, there wasn't any, but normally you would have that staff OE&E roll-up costs. The department consulting in this solution, it brings in what there is. If there isn't anything for a certain section, it doesn't come, it just leaves it blank. And then it also goes on to your future ops. What are the future operation costs? And this information is all provided in one tab and usually one page or possibly 2 pages if you were to print it.
Nancy, it looks like we have a question in the chat.
So on the, I did see a question on, I'm going to go back to that worksheet. Can everyone see the FAW worksheet?
Yep.
So someone had a question on what is the reason for the stage and the version. So I'm going to say that if I was doing the financial analysis worksheets for my department, I definitely would use this, because to help me, okay, at this point, if I went here, I put in that this is for stage 2 and it's version 1.2, I would know that there's another version, but this is the latest. I could look at another one, and as long as I was keeping this accurate, I had a later version, I could go in here and I could say, well, this is 1.3 or this is version 2. You know, however, as a department wants to do this, they could put that. It's really there to help for versioning purposes. I know that typically you're going to use something outside of this, but when you're actually viewing it, or if you happen to print it out, it would be very helpful to know you're not going to have that that metadata and stuff that is on the computer. So sometimes it's very helpful to have what stage this particular version was and what the date that it was. So if I was doing it, I probably would use this. And so when I got to stage 4, I would know, okay, this is stage 4 version 1 now that I'm doing it, and which would probably be different than my 2 and my version whatever 2 or 3 or 4 that I had on the previous one. This lets me know, okay, I'm talking about stage 4 now. Now for current ops, this was probably a little bit an example that you might not change, because current ops you might not have, you wouldn't necessarily be changing, but you could still change that version to help you know, okay, this is really which the timing of this particular FAW. So more likely it would be more helpful, say, on your project alternative 1 or your future ops would be helpful. So you would know, okay, this was related to the stage 4, or this related to stage 3, or this was related to stage 2, this particular abuse. So this, what happens is when you are doing your, say your future ops in this particular sample, it has 2 years, but we see here that there was just a couple months in one of the years. And so to show a full fiscal year, which is July 1st through June 30th, there we see that 2022-23 was the final fiscal year, which is also provided here. So total together, the total for ongoing costs, which includes the IT staff only and the OE&E related to the IT implementation of the IT solution, would be, this would be the amount for 1 year. So if we went down here and looked at the total costs, it shows that it's 401,435. However, that also includes program staff. So what the FAWs automatically do is exclude those program staff and just add in. So right here, you can see it just added in only the IT. If this had been IT, so if I switch this to IT, it's going to change the amount automatically. The department doesn't have to do anything. It'll automatically add both of those and change the amount. So if we went back to the executive cost summary, it's going to show that it's a different amount because there was additional IT. Now that IT future ops for continuing, it includes whatever is entered in future ops tab that is IT related for staff, and then any OE&E. So if we went back here, all the OE&E is included. So that OE&E expenditures 5 and 35,000 is included. So if we go over here, see there's that 35,000, and then the IT staff, this would be for the whole, this plus this would equal this. This is just that. What are we going to need as a department on an ongoing basis? That would be in that AC column. That's what you would need on an ongoing basis. So if I went back up here and switched that back to program, it would tell me, okay, I need on an ongoing basis 143,147. So if I go back over here to the executive cost summary, it shows me I need 143,147 on an ongoing basis. So year by year, fiscal year by fiscal year, I need that amount to fund this IT solution.
Hey, Nancy.
Get to that. Yes.
Nancy, real quick, while you're on this page, I just want to point out that lines 6 through 11, the question was about the approval letter. And this executive summary was designed by design to match up with the approval letter, that all these costs go right into the approval letter. Right.
That is correct. Sorry. Yes, I probably went to the nth degree on that, but yes, you are absolutely right, Tim.
No, it's good. It's good that you show how that's calculated, though, because I don't know that everybody understands how that comes together and how those blue columns work. And it's really important that you understand how those blue columns work and come into play.
Right, right.
Because 9 times out of 10, people only look at the executive cost summary. And if they want to dive deeper and double click on any of those numbers, they're right there. Like a magic.
So they can
like magic.
Like magic. It appears, and who knows how, right?
The magic of Excel.
Yes. There's just a little formula in there. So yes, so that basically, this information here is the information that would go in your stage 2 or stage 4 project approval letter. This is where it comes from. So it would be identified, here's your planning costs, here's your project costs, here's your total future operations costs, and then your total project costs, but then on an ongoing basis, this is the cost that you would need to fund the IT solution. That same information is actually on the summary sheet right here. So you can look at either one. The nice thing about the summary tab is it does show comparison if you have more than one alternative. For the training today, we did not provide another alternative just for time constraints. However, if you did have multiple alternatives, it would compare on a one sheet. This is the cost of this alternative. This is the cost here for the alternative 2. And then also if you had alternative 3, it would show the cost. So the nice thing is if you complete the pages, it will show what type of solution that you implemented. Now this, you can tell that when this was done, there was no name. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a name, and that's where I would put it. And if I did that right here, I'm going to call it COTS. If I did that, it actually then shows up as COTS. And if I don't have those sheets, but if you put in alternative 2 was custom build, it would show custom build there. So you can kind of at a glance say, oh, this alternative 1 is a COTS solution, and this is the overall cost. And then if that was completed on your alternative 2, you could say, well, that's your custom build, and that would be the total cost. All of the solutions, once you enter your current operations, they show up for any of the alternatives, because that's provided by the current operations tab. And then it shows now this one is different than the executive cost summary, because this shows an overall cost, where the summary sheets shows a year by year cost. It shows what the planning costs are and how many years. If I was to unhide this, if this solution had more years, it would show automatically up to 5 years on that. Because there was only 1 year, everything was hidden, and you could leave one open to show that you weren't missing something. Also on here, if I unhide this, you could have up to 10 years of project costs shown. My recommendation, of course, is that you hide what you don't need. And so if I hid this, it would look like that. It would show that my project started 2018-19 for planning. That's planning would be the stages 2 through 4. And then once I was approved to move forward as a project, would start my project costs. And then I would also have my future operation costs, which are all combined in one right here. Even though it's there might be several years in your future, it just is going to give you the lump of what it's going to cost, and then it's going to say, well, this is what the change in operations was.
Hey, Nancy, I just want to point out that you said hide and not delete. And I
Yes.
think that's an important thing that everybody
Yes.
needs to know is hide, not delete.
Never delete any columns or rows or cells, because it will cause a reference error. Because there are so many formulas in the FAWs that if you delete a column or if you delete a row, it will jeopardize the integrity of the entire FAWs, because the formula is looking for that cell possibly. And if you did that, it would cause an error. Normally, it would have a protection. So if I went here and I tried, I'm just going to go ahead and delete this or cut it, it won't let me. It'll say it has protection, don't do it. If I try to delete the cell, I can, I'm going to right click and cut it. It's going to give me that. The problem is if I went in here and I put in the password, the 123 or PAO, now if I did that, guess what? It's going to let me cut it. And once I did that, that formula's gone, everything's gone. I don't think I did it the way that I know some departments do. What is it? Control V, control. They do a control function.
Controls.
Control Z.
Yeah.
If I did a control Z, it's probably going to mess up my entire, because I have it unprotected. So my recommendation is don't use any of those control functions. And then also never cut a row or add a row or cut a column or delete a row, because if you do that, it will cause an error in the FAWs. Let me get back to the PowerPoint. So we went over the summary worksheet that it automatically populates all the data that is entered in the current ops and each respective alternative, which is the 2 through 1, 2, or 3. The outcome of that summary sheet is it does provide that view of what it looks like year by fiscal year versus the executive summary, which just shows the overall cost. The summary sheet shows that year by year, the planning, the project, and the future operation costs, the current costs, and then also a general change in program costs. So it could be that it is going to cost more, so it'll show that it's going to be a little more costly than the current operations to the future operations, or it's going to possibly show a benefit of costing less. And you'd be able to see that from your the summary sheet. Can everybody see the PowerPoint?
Yep.
Okay, so again, going over this, I know we went over it a little bit, but this is the average cost of the current operations. And when we get into that current operations tab, I will show you how you get the average. Planning costs are the year by year costs for planning. The planning is, of course, stages 2 through 4, and it's the one-time costs. The project costs are what the costs are fiscal year by fiscal year until the project is implemented. The average future operation costs is what it costs to implement the entire solution, and then also have 1 year of one full year of costs on an ongoing basis. So if your costs, if your financial analysis worksheets, your future ops are only showing a partial year, the PAO manager or Department of Finance is going to say, we need to see what it's going to cost for a full year. So you need to show us the following year, if that was a partial year, so that we know what is this going to cost on an ongoing basis, so that we can analyze and make sure that those costs are appropriate for the type of project that is being implemented. And then it also shows a change in operations. So like in this case, if this was your project, it shows your average current operations, the project cost, the average future. So it takes average future minus or compared to the average future operations. And this is what the difference is. So it's showing that there's a cost savings for your project.